Do you have pets or horses or maybe some sort of animal, but you're curious about what are the rules when it comes to pets, livestock, etc. in the Knoxville area? Well, let's find out. So I am making this video because I've had several clients who this came about because they're moving from across the country and they have horses. And they were curious, like, is there a amount of horses you can have per acre or whatever? So that then led me to figure out, I've never heard of any rule like that in this area. So I was like, maybe I've just never heard of this. So that led me down a rabbit hole of all the rules and ordinances in the Knox County and Knox City area. Now, let me just tell you, what I'm talking about today is strictly Knox City, so like Knoxville within the city limits, and then Knox County. So there's city ordinances and then there's county ordinances. The city ordinances or rules are for a city within the city limits, and then the county is obviously the county limits. So the county limits, as you can imagine, they are less restrictive. There's way more things you can do, way more options, and the city is a bit more strict. So keep that in mind. Number one, to know in general, when it comes to also other counties, like you'll want to look specifically to Blount County, or you'll want to specifically look to Anderson County or Sevier County, Jefferson County, etc. So all the counties control or have rules about what's happening with pets, livestock, etc. A couple other things to note. There is the city zoning commission. There is the county, like Knox County zoning commission. So like we have a Knoxville city mayor and we have a Knox County mayor. Okay, so then there's city like ordinances, like I said, county, so Knox County zoning, Knoxville city zoning, and then there's also the animal control, and animal control is like the enforcer of the rules and ordinances. Animal control, for example, like there's a rule, for example, that's like no pets that are, loud nuisances or whatever. The animal control, which is part of the Knox County Sheriff, they're the ones that enforce that. So that's another kind of thread of looking at rules, is also what animal control does, how they're enforced, and that kind of thing. So that's some of the things to note, okay? So as I'm making this video right now, it's December 2022, and I think both the ordinances, Knox City and Knox County, were up to date as of like November 16th, 2022. That was like the latest version. So obviously if you're watching this in July of 2024 or whatever, like this, maybe I need to do another video. You know what I mean? So just check that. I'll put links to the ordinance like below. You know what I'm saying. Okay, and the other thing I want to point out is TWRA. TWRA is Tennessee Wildlife and Recreation Association. They're the ones that do like fishing and hunting licenses. TWRA deals specifically more with wildlife. So that would be like if there's an issue with like a coyote or a bear or whatever, TWRA versus animal control is going to be kind of who addresses that. Now we're more specifically talking about pets and animals that you might have. So some of the big differences between city versus county. When it comes to the city, you may not have livestock. Okay, and let me just read you verbatim the definition of livestock. Hold on one second. So livestock is all animals of equine, bovine, or swine class, and includes goats, sheep, mules, horses, hogs or cattle, and domesticated poultry, so chickens. So in the city, you may not have those unless you have a permit for them. So I'm not saying it's an absolute no, but I am saying you would have to have a permit. Now, could you get away with it? If you're a rebel, maybe, like if you're like, I'm not listening to this, you may get fined. You'd be in violation if you did have chickens, goats, pigs, etc. And I was about to be like, I had a neighbor that was in violation, but actually we lived in the county. They had a pig named Quasimodo, and anyways, it was a really cute pig, but we were in the county, so it was fine. So main thing to know about the city is within city limits, you may not have livestock, and that includes horses. I will also say that within the city, there's some stricter rules about like cats and dogs themselves. Obviously, all dogs must have their rabies shot and they need their rabies tag. And then also within the city, you have to have, I didn't actually know this. I guess I've actually never lived within Knox City. Like I grew up here, I'm from here, but I've only ever lived in the county, so I never knew this. But if you live within the city limits, all of your pets are required to possess a city tag. Your pet must have an up-to-date rabies vaccine in order to purchase a tag. This tag must be purchased annually and worn by your pet, just like the rabies tag. And then it goes on to say that Young Williams Animal Center and most veterinarians in the city offer these tags. So that's something to note. Any pets. So when it's saying animals, let's talk about what animals are defined as. So it says, first of all, this definition I'm not really a fan of. Okay, it says animal in italics means every living dumb creature, including but not limited to dogs, cats, warm-blooded mammals, birds, reptiles, and fish. Dumb, which I know what they're saying. I know they're saying like they can't talk, but they're not dumb, okay? That kind of, I kind of took offense to that, but I don't know. I'm like, I just don't like that definition. Why can't they just leave out the dumb part? Anyways, they clearly didn't ask me to write these rules for them. So the main things to know, again, about city versus county. City, no livestock, period, point blank, unless you have a permit. And then also in general in the city, some of the main rules are that like animals in general cannot run at large. Like if you go to a city park, they have to be, or they're supposed to be on a leash. But then there's things called community cats, which I think is funny. And it says community cat means any free roaming cat that may be cared for by one or more residents of the immediate area who is or are known or unknown. Community cats that are ear-tipped are sterilized and have received at least one vaccination against rabies. Community cats are exempt from any licensing, stray, abandonment, and at-large provisions directed towards owned animals. A community cat may also be defined as a cat found outside that is brought to an animal shelter and not yet sterilized or ear-tipped. So basically what they're saying is that you have to have animals cannot run at large unless it's a community cat. So that's just something to note, is that in general, like your animals can't be running around. And if they are, they're in violation. When it comes to the county itself, the county has restrictions around like the number of dogs per acre. So for example, dogs and cats. If you have 1 to 5 dogs and cats, they can be on 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, 5+, right? But it's basically, this goes down to if you have 21 or more dogs or cats, you have to have at least 5 acres. 21 dogs or cats, like what are we even doing? If you have 21 dogs or cats and you're offended by what I just said, I wasn't trying to be offensive. I'm just saying that's a lot, okay? But you gotta have at least 5 acres. So that's the only acreage rule that I could find. So that being said, this whole reason why I even started this video was to talk about horses, and there are no rules about horses and acreage that I could find. I even called animal control. He told me they were taking emergency calls. Obviously my call was not an emergency. I did leave a voicemail with someone, but I'm sure they have more important things to deal with than my question. So from my understanding, there are no rules about the amount of acres that you need. Now, there are rules that say if you have a horse within the county, which you are allowed to have. So basically the rule is that the livestock must be fenced. They must have a fence. They cannot be running freely, just like the cats and dogs, unless it's a community cat, can run freely. But everyone else, every animal else has to be within a fence. Basically if you got horses, bring them on. Again, not in the city, you have to have a permit. Just some other things of note that I think are like, obviously there's all kinds of rules. But the other thing is that in general, city and county, no person shall have, sell, keep, or maintain any wild, exotic, dangerous, or non-domesticated animal within the county. You can't do it. You can't be a, what's his name? Tiger Joe? Joe Tiger? Tiger King. You cannot be a Tiger King here. Not allowed. Not allowed. I think when I was growing up, our neighbor may have had a tiger. which apparently wasn't allowed then either. But that's a story for another day. My mom told me about it, but I never actually saw this tiger. And in my mind, like, our neighbor is like Barnum Bailey, like the circus person. That's not who he was, but you know what I'm saying. Anyways, I digress. Okay, let me find and tell you about, I mean, obviously there's rules about, like, okay, so this is one from the county. It says owners must provide minimum care sufficient to preserve the health and well-being of the animal considering the species. So, like, you know, you got to take care of your animals, basically. And then if not, you'd be in violation. I think probably what would that mean is, like, a neighbor would call, say you're in violation, and then animal control would come and investigate. So there is also some stuff about, within, like, the city, and this is about maximum number of animals per household, permits for kenneling, boarding, etc. So it says no person shall keep, lodge, or maintain in excess of 4 dogs or cats over the age of 6 months. So if you have puppies, you're good. Except an animal shelter, a zoo, a governmental agency, a humane society incorporated under the laws of the state. So if you're within the city, you may not have more than 4 dogs that are over 6 months old. Didn't know that rule until looking at this. And it's, let's see, it says where zoning laws, health laws, and other laws or regulations do not preclude, a person may keep, lodge, or maintain in excess of 4 dogs and or cats over the age of 6 months if such person applies and receives from the board of kennel, boarding facility, pet shop, or pet dealer permit. So if you have those things, if you're a kennel, if you're boarding them, if you're a pet shop, you may have more than 4 within the city. Also, something I didn't know is there's a rule that says you may not, basically you cannot sell dogs or cats. Like, you can't trade animals on public property. The other thing is that if you are like a restaurant within the city, they just actually recently there was permitting for this, but if you want to have dogs on your patio or if there's going to be food, the restaurants have to have a permit for that. If you are keeping goats, cattle, horses, sheep within the city, it clearly says it is unlawful unless you have a permit. And then again, swine and poultry, you may not do that. It is unlawful for any person to keep, harbor, or confine any animal of the swine species or type or poultry in any building, structure, shed, corral, pen, or enclosure. So, I mean, this isn't that big of a deal though, because Knox County is much larger than Knoxville City. And plus that Knoxville City, like horses don't belong there. You know what I mean? Pigs, they don't belong there. Chickens, I mean, I feel like chickens are so common today that who even cares, but whatever. What do I know? They didn't ask me again for my opinion on this. So those are some of the main things. So big takeaways. No acreage rule for horses. So the horses just have to be within a fence, and they have to be in the county. You may not have a horse in the city unless you have a permit to do so. You can not have any other livestock, cows, pigs, chickens, none of that unless you have a permit within the city. Outside of the city, you're good. Again, I have not found anything that says like livestock rules. And I actually even talked with somebody at the county about this, and she said there's nothing in the ordinances for it unless animal control has something. That's what led me to animal control. And like I said, they're dealing with crises, and my silly questions are not really important. And I'm not saying that like jokingly, I'm just literally saying that, like, I get it. They have bigger problems than this. But that being said, there's no ordinances or rules. Now, you also want to check, let's just say this, you also have to check the HOA. Now, I'm assuming if you are having horses or pigs or chickens, you're probably not even looking at properties that have an HOA in general. So I just want to put that out there. I will say, if there is an HOA, you need to find the restrictions. So maybe you're buying a property on 5 acres within an HOA managed or like restricted area, then you want to find that out. And some neighborhoods, obviously within the county, are going to have rules about dogs, horses, etc. So again, maybe it's not even 5 acres. Maybe you are bringing a horse and you're moving into a neighborhood. You want to make sure that those restrictions do not restrict you from doing so. So in the city, dogs, cats, lizards. I'm not reading that definition again because it was pretty rude. But no horses, no livestock, no exotic animals. And then in the county, you can have what you want. but there are rules about like if you have 21 or more dogs, you need 5 acres. So anyhow, those are some of the animal and pets rules that are in the Knox County and Knox City limits. Obviously, if you have questions, you please just let me know. You know who to call. Call me and I will help you, and we can find out answers to any of your questions. So I will see you on the next video.